"We're cutting back on your kids' Christmas gifts. Money problems," Dad texted. But my brother's kids got iPads, smartwatches, designer sneakers. I took my kids to Aspen. Posted the pictures. Niece asked, "Why didn't you take US?" I answered, "Money problems." Mom called, "How could you?" I said, "Can you imagine getting a text from your own father saying he's canceling your kids' Christmas gifts because of budget issues? Now imagine, just hours later, seeing your brother's children unwrapping thousands of dollars worth of luxury presents from those very same budget-strapped grandparents." My blood ran cold that day, and it was just the beginning of a shocking realization about my family. I was untangling Christmas lights with my 8-year-old twin daughters, Emma and Grace, when my phone buzzed. The text from Dad made my heart stop. "We're canceling your kids' Christmas gifts. Budget issues." I stared at the screen, a cold wave washing over me. Disbelief. Pure, utter disbelief. Emma looked up, her innocent eyes questioning, "What's wrong, Daddy?" The girls, oblivious, were bouncing around, chattering excitedly about Grandma and Grandpa's promised visit. My mind raced back to Dad's recent promotion, the shiny new car they just bought. None of it made any sense. Then, my phone lit up again. A group family photo from my brother, Derek. His kids, Tyler and Madison, unwrapping early Christmas presents. iPads, smartwatches, designer shoes. My jaw dropped. 20 minutes later, I was gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white, speeding through familiar suburban streets. Christmas lights twinkled from every house, but all I could see was that cruel text and those photos of Derek's kids with their expensive new toys. I pulled into my parents' driveway, spotting Derek's car already there. Through the bay window, I could see warm lights, silhouettes moving inside. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the inevitable confrontation. The front door opened before I could even knock. Mom stood there, flustered, her hair a bit messy. "Oh, Corey, honey," she said, her voice laced with that nervous edge I remembered from childhood, the one that meant trouble was brewing. "I wasn't expecting you." "We need to talk, Mom," I said, stepping into the foyer, the scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon suddenly sickeningly sweet. "About Dad's text." Her face fell, and she glanced nervously towards the living room, where I could hear kids laughing and video games beeping. "Your father is just trying to be practical about the holidays this year," she began. But I was already walking past her. In the living room, Derek was sprawled on the couch, an expensive craft beer in hand, watching Tyler and Madison engrossed in their brand-new gaming equipment. Empty takeout containers from some high-end steakhouse littered the coffee table, $100 dinner at least. "Hey, little brother," Derek mumbled, not looking up from his phone, where he was scrolling through real estate listings. "Didn't know you were coming." Tyler, Derek's 10-year-old, looked up. "Uncle Corey, look what Grandpa got me for Christmas." He held up a controller. A PlayStation 5 bundle. At least $500. Madison, 8, bounded over, her wrists adorned with what looked like a genuine Apple Watch. "And look at my new watch. It tracks my steps and sends messages." I scanned the room. Shopping bags from high-end stores, Nike boxes stacked by the tree. More presents than I'd ever seen before. Dad emerged from the kitchen, an expensive bottle of wine in hand, one he usually saved for special occasions. When he saw me, his expression shifted from cheer to a mix of guilt and defensiveness. "Corey, son, I suppose Linda told you about our conversation regarding Christmas gifts this year." "You mean your text about budget issues?" I pulled out my phone, reading the message aloud. "Because I'm looking around here, and I'm seeing a lot of expensive gifts that don't exactly scream financial hardship." Derek finally looked up, his jaw tightening. "Maybe you don't understand what it's like trying to manage Christmas as a single parent going through a divorce, Corey. The kids need some stability right now." "Stability?" I gestured toward the gaming equipment. "This looks like about $3,000 worth of electronics." Mom wrung her hands. "Derek's situation is complicated, honey. He lost his job 6 months ago, and with the divorce proceedings, he's having to manage the kids on Christmas Day this year instead of Amanda. We wanted to make sure Tyler and Madison had a special Christmas despite everything their father has been going through." A cold knot formed in my stomach. "So let me get this straight. Derek gets early Christmas gifts worth thousands of dollars because he's struggling financially, but my kids get nothing because of budget issues. Dad set down his wine glass, crossing his arms. Your situation is different, son. You have a stable job, a stable marriage. You can afford to provide for your daughters. Derek really needs our help right now. So, financial help means luxury electronics and designer shoes. I pointed to the Nike boxes. Those aren't exactly necessities. Derek stood up, his face flushing red. You have no idea what I'm dealing with. Amanda's lawyers are bleeding me dry. I'm trying to start my own business, and I need to make sure my kids don't suffer because of adult problems they didn't create. What kind of business? I asked. Consulting, Derek said quickly. Marketing consulting. It's just taking time to build up the client base. Tyler held up a pair of brand new Air Jordan sneakers. Dad says these cost $200. Grandpa got them special ordered. I looked at Dad. He avoided my gaze. $200 for shoes for a 10-year-old. But you can't manage Christmas gifts for Emma and Grace. It's not about what we can manage, Dad said defensively. It's about prioritizing where our help is needed most. Derek's children are dealing with family instability right now. And what exactly do you think my children are dealing with? I retorted, when their grandparents suddenly cancel Christmas with a 2-line text message. Mom stepped between us, her voice pleading. Boys, please don't fight. It's almost Christmas. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Girls are asking when you'll be home. Emma wants to know if Grandma and Grandpa are still coming for Christmas morning. I stared at the message, picturing my daughters at home, decorating the tree, excited, completely unaware that their grandparents had just written them off. I need some air, I said, heading for the patio door. As I passed the kitchen, I heard Dad and Derek talking in low voices. I told you this would be awkward, Dad was saying. But Corey's got that stable engineering salary. He can afford his own kids' Christmas. You really need the help right now. I appreciate it, Dad, Derek replied. The kids deserve this after everything they've been through. Corey will understand eventually. He's always been the responsible one. I stood there, frozen. They were discussing my family's Christmas like we were a line item, an expense that could just be crossed out. The casual way they dismissed my daughter's feelings, the assumption that I should just accept being treated as less important because I was financially stable. It hit me like a physical punch. I walked back into the living room, where Tyler and Madison were now showing off designer clothing with tags still attached. Madison was modeling a coat that cost more than most people spent on their entire winter wardrobe. I need to get home to my family, I announced. Derek looked up from his beer. Tell Emma and Grace we said hi. Maybe they can come over and play with Tyler and Madison's new stuff sometime. The casual cruelty of a suggestion left me speechless. I kissed Mom's cheek, nodded at Dad, who now looked uncomfortable but showed no signs of reconsidering, and walked out. Driving home, through the twinkling Christmas lights of our neighborhood, I replayed that conversation. The dismissive way they talked about my family. The assumption that we were second-class relatives because we were doing well. When I walked through our front door, Emma and Grace ran to greet me, their faces bright. Daddy, did you talk to Grandpa about Christmas morning? Emma asked. Are they still coming to watch us open presents? I knelt down, hugging them, breathing in the scent of their strawberry shampoo, feeling my heart break a little more. We'll talk about Christmas morning tomorrow, sweethearts, I said. Right now, let's just focus on making our tree beautiful. Sarah caught my eye over their heads, her expression full of questions. I just shook my head. This wasn't a conversation for little ears. Later that night, after they were tucked into bed, still chattering about Santa and Christmas morning, I told Sarah everything. She listened in stunned silence. I can't believe they would do that, she whispered. Those girls have been looking forward to Christmas with their grandparents for months. The worst part is how they talked about us, I said, when they thought I couldn't hear. Like we're just a successful family that doesn't need love or consideration because we can take care of ourselves. Sarah reached for my hand. What are we going to do about Christmas morning? The girls are expecting them. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the winter wind rattle our windows, realizing that everything I thought I knew about my family had just fundamentally changed. The next morning, I woke with a sick feeling in my stomach and a fierce determination. Something didn't add up about Derek's financial crisis. Sarah was already in the kitchen. "Didn't you say he quit his job, not got laid off?" she asked. "That's what I thought," I replied. "But Mom specifically said he lost his job. I think I need to make some phone calls." After Sarah left for work and the girls were at school, I became a detective. My first call was to Jake, a mutual friend in Derek's old marketing department. "Hey Jake, it's Corey. My family mentioned Derek lost his job a few months ago. Was it layoffs or performance issues?" A pause. "Lost his job?" "Corey, Derek wasn't fired. He quit. Gave his 2 weeks notice back in June, said he was starting his own consulting business." My grip tightened on the phone. "Are you absolutely certain?" "Completely. I was in the meeting. He said he had big clients lined up, ready to be his own boss. We were all kind of envious, actually. Made it sound like he was going to be making bank." I hung up, staring at my laptop screen. Then, I opened Derek's LinkedIn. What I found made my blood boil. His profile proudly displayed him as founder and principal consultant of his own marketing firm. Recent posts showed business lunches at expensive restaurants, updates about exciting new client partnerships, and professional headshots. One from 2 weeks ago, building relationships and expanding horizons, grateful for the opportunities that come with entrepreneurship. Another, last month, featured him at a steakhouse with several men in suits, captioned, "Closing deals and building partnerships. Nothing beats a successful quarter." I scrolled through months of posts, each painting a picture of a successful entrepreneur, not a struggling single father. Weekend trips, expensive dinners, a new wardrobe. Then I checked his other social media. Instagram showed a weekend trip to Las Vegas just 3 weeks ago, high-end casinos, expensive buffets. Photos from premium seats at a professional football game. But the most damning evidence came from his Facebook, which he apparently thought was more private. Photos from his recent birthday party at an upscale cocktail lounge, complete with bottle service and a several $100 bar tab. And then the photo, posted just 4 days ago. Derek, grinning, standing next to a bright red Corvette convertible with the caption, "Sometimes you need to treat yourself. Life's too short for boring cars." I screenshotted it. This was the same car he supposedly had to sell due to financial hardship, the story Mom had told me. My phone rang. "Sarah, any luck?" "You could say that. Derek hasn't been fired. He quit voluntarily to start his own business, which seems to be doing quite well, judging by his social media. And he definitely hasn't sold his Corvette." "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. He's been posting photos of expensive trips, dinners, and luxury purchases for months. Either he's the worst businessman in history, or he's been lying to Mom and Dad about his financial situation." Sarah was quiet. "So, he's manipulating them. Exactly what he's doing. And it's working perfectly. He gets to play the victim while our kids get nothing for Christmas. What are you going to do with this?" I looked at the screenshots. Derek's deception laid bare. "I'm not sure yet, but I'm not going to let him destroy my daughter's Christmas while he plays games with our parents' emotions." That afternoon, when Emma and Grace came home, they were full of questions about Christmas morning. "Is Grandma Linda coming to make her special pancakes?" Grace asked. "Are Grandpa Frank and Grandma going to be here when we open presents?" Emma added. "Tyler texted me that they gave him a new gaming system already." Sarah and I exchanged glances. "Girls, come sit with Daddy and Mommy for a minute," I said, settling onto the couch. They climbed up, their faces expectant, but traces of worry starting to show. "Grandpa and Grandma aren't going to be able to come for Christmas morning this year," I said gently. "They're spending Christmas with Uncle Derek and your cousins." Emma's face fell. "But they always come here. It's our tradition. Why can't they come to both?" Grace asked. "They could come here first, and then go to Uncle Derek's." Sarah smoothed Grace's hair. "Sometimes grown-ups have to make difficult decisions about holidays, sweetie. Uncle Derek's kids are going through some changes with their parents' divorce, so Grandpa and Grandma want to be there for them." "But what about us?" Emma asked, her voice small and hurt. "Don't they want to be here for us, too?" The question hit me like a physical blow. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that their grandparents had essentially ranked them as less important? "Of course, they love you just as much," I said, the words feeling hollow. "Sometimes families have to make hard choices." After dinner, While the girls were doing homework, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Corey, honey, I've been thinking about last night, and I want you to know this decision wasn't easy for us." "Mom, can I ask you something directly?" I cut in. "Has Derek shown you any documentation of his job loss? Termination papers? Unemployment filing? Anything official?" A pause. "Well, no, but he explained the situation when he moved back in with us temporarily. He's living with you just until he gets back on his feet. The divorce has been so hard on him financially." I took a deep breath. "Mom, I need you to look at something. Can you get on your computer?" "I suppose so. I'm going to send you Derek's LinkedIn profile and some of his social media posts. I think you need to see what he's been posting about his business success." "Corey, I don't think I should be spying on your brother." "It's not spying if it's publicly posted, Mom. He's been lying to you about his financial situation." After I sent her the links and screenshots, the phone was silent for several long minutes. "Oh my," she said finally, her voice very small. "Mom, that Corvette in the photo? That's the car he told you he had to sell, right?" "Yes. He said the divorce settlement required him to liquidate assets. This photo was posted 4 days ago. He still owns the car." The silence stretched. So long I thought the call had dropped. "Mom, are you still there?" "I need to talk to your father," she said, her voice shaky. "Corey, I had no idea." "I know you didn't. But Mom, this means that Derek has been manipulating you and Dad while my kids suffer the consequences. Emma and Grace have been looking forward to Christmas morning with you for months." "I feel sick," she said quietly. "I need to go process this information." After she hung up, I found Sarah in the kitchen. "How did that go?" she asked. I think Mom's starting to understand. But I'm not holding my breath for Dad to change his mind. He's always had a soft spot for Derek's drama. Sarah dried her hands. "What if they don't fix this? What if Emma and Grace end up having a Christmas morning without their grandparents because Derek manipulated the situation?" I looked towards the staircase, where I could hear the girls getting ready for bed, their voices still carrying that excited anticipation that comes with being 8 years old, 3 weeks before Christmas. "Then we'll make sure they have the best Christmas possible anyway," I said. "And Derek will learn that actions have consequences." But even as I said it, I was already formulating a plan. A plan that would teach my entire family exactly what budget issues really felt like. Christmas morning arrived, gray and cold, with a light dusting of snow that, under different circumstances, would have been magical. I woke early, but instead of excitement, a heavy dread settled in my chest. Sarah and I had managed to scrape together enough money for some modest gifts for Emma and Grace. Art supplies, a few books, some small toys. We dipped into our emergency savings, the fund we'd been building for unexpected expenses, just to make sure the girls had something to open. Emma and Grace came bounding down the stairs at 7 a.m., their faces bright with that pure joy only children know on Christmas. They raced to the tree, where our small collection of wrapped packages waited. "Where are Grandma and Grandpa's presents?" Grace asked, looking around. "Remember, sweetie, they're spending Christmas with Tyler and Madison this year," Sarah said gently. Emma's face fell slightly, but she rallied quickly. "Well, can we call them after we open presents, so they can see what Santa brought us?" "Of course we can," I said, though I dreaded the conversation that would inevitably follow. The girls opened their gifts with enthusiasm, but I could see the questions in their eyes, the confusion about why Christmas felt different this year. Around 9:30, Sarah suggested we video call my parents. I reluctantly pulled up the app. When the call connected, we found ourselves looking into my parents' living room, where Derek's family was gathered. The sheer volume of gifts was staggering. The tree was surrounded by open boxes, wrapping paper, and what looked like thousands of dollars worth of electronics and toys. "Grandma Linda, Grandpa Frank," Emma called out excitedly. "Look what I got for Christmas." She held up her art supplies. I watched my parents' faces try to muster enthusiasm that clearly didn't match what they were seeing around their living room. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Mom said, her voice strained. In the background, Tyler was setting up a complete gaming system. "Uncle Corey and Sarah," Tyler called out, oblivious to the tension. "Look what Grandpa got me. It's the new PlayStation with all the best games. It costs $3,000. Grace's eyes widened. $3,000, she whispered to me. Madison bounded into view, wearing a complete outfit of designer clothes. And look at my Christmas clothes. Grandma took me shopping at the fancy mall. She said I could pick out whatever I wanted. I watched my daughters' faces. The simple joy they'd felt about their own presents was slowly being replaced by confusion and hurt. Grandpa, Emma said quietly, did Santa bring Tyler and Madison extra presents because they're staying at your house? Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. Well, sweetie, Santa knows that Tyler and Madison are going through some changes this year, so he wanted to make sure their Christmas was special. But we would have been good too, Grace said, her voice very small. We helped Mommy and Daddy decorate the tree, and we've been extra good at school. I felt something break inside my chest, watching my 8-year-old daughter try to understand why she was less deserving of her grandparents' attention and generosity. Derek appeared in the video frame, carrying a glass of expensive champagne. Hey, little brother, how's your Christmas morning going? It's going fine, I said tightly. Tyler, show them your other presents, Derek encouraged. For the next 10 minutes, we were subjected to a parade of expensive gifts. Video games, designer clothing, high-end electronics, jewelry. Derek made sure to mention the price of several items, reveling in the display. And this is just the beginning, he announced. Mom and Dad are taking the kids shopping after Christmas for their winter wardrobes. Apparently, the kids need new ski equipment for our trip to Colorado next month. Sarah squeezed my arm. You're going skiing? Emma asked, her voice full of longing. Grandpa's treating us to a week at Vail, Tyler announced proudly. It's going to be amazing. After we ended the call, Emma and Grace sat quietly on the living room floor, surrounded by their modest gifts, clearly processing what they had just witnessed. Daddy, Grace said finally, why do Tyler and Madison get so many presents and a ski trip? Yeah, Emma added. And why don't Grandma and Grandpa love us enough to come see us on Christmas morning? Sarah got up abruptly and walked into the kitchen. I could hear her crying quietly. I knelt between my daughters, trying to find words that would comfort them without lying. Sometimes adults make decisions that don't seem fair, I said carefully. But that doesn't mean you're loved any less, and it doesn't mean you did anything wrong. But it feels like we did something wrong, Emma said, her eyes filling with tears. I pulled both girls into a hug, my anger toward Derek and my parents reaching a boiling point. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Corey, Linda and I have been talking, and we think it would be a good idea if your family could contribute to Tyler and Madison's college funds this year instead of exchanging gifts. Since you're doing so well financially, it would really help Derek plan for the kids' futures. We could set up $500 per child as a starting point. I stared at the message in absolute disbelief. After watching Derek's children receive thousands of dollars in Christmas gifts, after my own daughters had been excluded from their grandparents' celebration, Dad was asking me to contribute to my nephew and niece's college funds. Sarah appeared in the doorway. What is it? She asked, seeing my expression. I showed her the text. I watched her face transform from confusion to fury. Are they serious? She whispered. Apparently so. Emma looked up at me with those trusting 8-year-old eyes. Daddy, are you sad about Christmas? I looked at my daughter, then at Grace, then at Sarah, and realized something fundamental had shifted in me. Derek's manipulation had cost my children their relationship with their grandparents. His lies had resulted in my daughters spending Christmas morning feeling like they weren't good enough, weren't loved enough, weren't worthy of the same treatment as their cousins. I thought about the emergency savings we had just depleted to buy their modest Christmas gifts. I thought about Dad's casual assumption that we should contribute to Derek's children's future while Derek spent frivolously and manipulated our parents. And I realized it was time to stop being the responsible, understanding son who accepted whatever treatment the family decided to give us. No, sweetheart, I said to Emma. Daddy's not sad. Daddy's just figuring some things out. I walked into the kitchen and started researching last-minute vacation packages on my phone. If Derek could manipulate the situation to get luxury treatment for his family, then it was time for my family to experience some luxury of our own. And it was time to teach everyone involved exactly what budget issues really meant. The Monday after Christmas, while Emma and Grace were still on winter break, I made a decision that would change everything. I was sitting in my home office, staring at my laptop, when I found a last-minute vacation package deal. Aspen Winter Family Package, the ad read. 5 days, 4 nights at the luxurious Mountain View Resort. Includes ski lessons, equipment rental, and gourmet dining. Last-minute availability for the week between Christmas and New Year's. I clicked through the details, calculating the cost. It would require using our credit card. It would definitely stretch our budget, but after watching my daughter's faces on Christmas morning, I realized this wasn't about money anymore. This was about dignity, self-respect, and teaching Emma and Grace that they deserve to be treated with the same love and consideration as anyone else. Sarah walked in with coffee. I turned the laptop toward her. "Are you seriously considering this?" she asked. "Dead serious. Derek gets to manipulate Mom and Dad into funding his family's luxury lifestyle while our kids get excluded from Christmas. I think it's time we showed everyone that we can create our own magical family experiences." Sarah sat down, her expression thoughtful but concerned. "Corey, this is going to cost us several $1,000s. Money we don't exactly have sitting around. Money we don't have sitting around because we just spent our emergency fund on Christmas gifts after Dad canceled the girls' presents for budget reasons," I said. "Meanwhile, Derek's kids got thousands in gifts, plus a ski trip to Vail. But what's the point? This feels like we're trying to compete with them." I leaned back. "It's not about competition, Sarah. It's about showing Emma and Grace that they matter, that they deserve wonderful experiences and family adventures. And honestly, it's about showing my family that their assumptions about us are completely wrong." "What do you mean?" "Dad assumes we'll just accept whatever treatment they decide to give us because we're financially stable. He literally asked me to contribute to Derek's kids' college funds after excluding our daughters from Christmas. The whole family operates under this assumption that responsible, successful people don't need love, consideration, or special treatment." Sarah was quiet for several minutes, sipping her coffee. "And you think taking the girls to Aspen will change that?" "I think taking the girls to Aspen will show them that their parents prioritize their happiness and well-being above everything else. And if the rest of the family sees it and realizes what they've been missing out on by excluding us, well, that's just a bonus. What about the cost? We'll be paying this off for months." I thought about Derek's Instagram posts, his expensive dinners, his Corvette, his Vegas trips, all funded, apparently, by manipulating our parents while playing the victim. Derek's been spending money he claims not to have for months while getting handouts from Mom and Dad. Meanwhile, we've been responsible, budget-conscious, and careful with our finances. And what has that gotten us? Our kids excluded from family celebrations because we're supposedly too successful to need support. Sarah started laughing, but it wasn't a happy sound. "It is pretty ridiculous when you put it that way. I'm tired of being punished for being responsible, Sarah. I'm tired of watching our daughters suffer because their parents are stable and reliable. Derek gets rewarded for being dramatic and manipulative, and we get taken for granted because we don't create chaos." I pulled up Derek's social media. "Look at this. 3 weeks ago, Vegas. 2 weeks ago, expensive steakhouse. Last week, his Corvette. Talking about treating yourself. But somehow he's too financially strapped to afford his kids' Christmas gifts." Sarah scrolled through the posts, her expression growing more incredulous. "These restaurant bills alone probably cost more than our Christmas budget." "Exactly. So, while he's manipulating Mom and Dad with fake financial hardship, we're over here actually living within our means and getting treated like we don't matter because we're not dramatic enough." I looked toward the living room, where Emma and Grace were playing with their Christmas gifts, their voices carrying that forced cheerfulness children use when they're trying to be happy about something that's actually disappointed them. Those girls had been looking forward to Christmas with their grandparents since October. And it all got taken away because Derek decided to play victim, and Mom and Dad decided his kids' happiness was more important than ours. Sarah set down her coffee cup and looked at me. "If we do this, if we book this vacation, we're committing to something bigger than just a family trip." "What do you mean?" "I mean, we're committing to not being the family members who just accept whatever treatment we're given. We're committing to prioritizing our own family's happiness, even if it makes other people uncomfortable." I thought about that. She was right. This vacation would be a statement, a line in the sand. "I think I'm ready to make that commitment," I said. "Are you?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. "You know what? Yes, I am. Those girls deserve to know that their parents will fight for their happiness. And frankly, after watching Derek manipulate this entire situation, I'm ready to stop being the understanding sister-in-law who just accepts whatever the family decides. I started booking the vacation package immediately. 5 days at a luxury resort in Aspen. Ski lessons for the girls. Spa treatments for Sarah. Enough high-end experiences to create magical memories. As I entered our credit card information, my phone buzzed. A group message from Derek to me, Mom, and Dad, with photos from their ski trip planning. Excited for our Vail adventure next month. The kids are going to love the slopes. Thanks again, Mom and Dad, for making this possible for my family during such a difficult time. I screenshotted it, adding it to my collection of evidence. Girls! I called towards the living room. Can you come here for a minute? Daddy and Mommy have something exciting to tell you. Emma and Grace came running, their faces curious and hopeful. How would you like to go on a surprise vacation this week? I asked. A vacation? Emma asked, her eyes lighting up for the first time since Christmas morning. Aspen, Colorado. We're going to go skiing and stay in a beautiful mountain resort and have spa days and eat at fancy restaurants. Grace's mouth fell open. Really? We're really going on a vacation. Really? Sarah confirmed. We leave tomorrow morning. The girls erupted in squeals, dancing around the office, asking a million questions about skiing, mountains, and room service. I watched their faces transform from the subdued disappointment they'd carried since Christmas to pure, unadulterated joy. I knew I was making the right decision. Later that evening, after shopping for ski equipment and warm clothes, and after the girls had gone to bed, still excitedly talking about their adventure, I sat down to plan the social media strategy that would accompany our vacation. If Derek could use social media to manipulate the family narrative, then I could use it to tell our story. But unlike Derek's lies and exaggerations, my posts would document real experiences, real joy, and real family bonding. I planned my photos, the girls learning to ski, dining at elegant restaurants, our luxury suite, spa treatments. And I researched hashtags to ensure maximum visibility among our extended family. It was time for everyone to see that Emma and Grace's family could create magical experiences too. And it was time for Tyler and Madison to learn what it felt like to be excluded from something wonderful. But as I finalized our itinerary, my phone rang. It was Mom, and her voice sounded shaky. Corey, honey, I need to tell you something. Your father and I have been talking about Christmas and about some of the things you showed me regarding Derek's social media posts. Okay, I said cautiously. I think we may have made a mistake. A big mistake. And I'm not sure how to fix it. I felt a surge of vindication, followed immediately by anger. What kind of mistake, Mom? I don't think Derek has been entirely honest with us about his financial situation. And I'm starting to realize that our decision about Christmas gifts may have hurt Emma and Grace in ways we didn't consider. Asterisk may have hurt them. Asterisk, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Mom, my 8-year-old daughter spent Christmas morning trying to understand why their grandparents didn't love them enough to come see them. They watched Tyler and Madison open thousands of dollars worth of gifts while they tried to be grateful for the art supplies we bought after depleting our savings. I know, honey. I know. And I feel terrible about it. And then Dad asked me to contribute to Derek's kids' college funds after excluding my kids from Christmas because of budget issues. There was a long silence. Your father realizes that message was inappropriate, she said finally. He's been feeling guilty about it since he sent it. Good, I said. Because tomorrow morning, I'm taking my family to Aspen for a week-long vacation. And maybe while we're gone, you and Dad can figure out whether Emma and Grace actually matter to you, or if they're just the grandchildren you take for granted because their parents are responsible adults. Corey, please don't. I hung up and immediately turned my phone to silent. Whatever revelations my parents were having, they were about 6 months too late. Derek had successfully manipulated them, and they had made their choices. Now it was time for my family to make our own. And our choice was to stop waiting for other people to value us and start showing Emma and Grace that they were worth every luxury, every adventure, and every magical experience we could possibly provide. The mountain air in Aspen was crisp and clean. The snow-covered peaks surrounding our resort looked like something from a fairy tale. As our taxi pulled up to the Mountain View Resort, Emma and Grace pressed their faces to the windows, their breath fogging the glass as they stared in wonder at the elegant lodge, its soaring timber architecture and massive stone fireplaces visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Is this really where we're staying?" Grace whispered, her voice full of awe. "This is it, sweetheart," Sarah said, squeezing their hands as we stepped out. A valet appeared. A friendly concierge welcomed us. The lobby was adorned with twinkling lights and elegant silver and gold ornaments. Our suite was on the 4th floor, with panoramic views of the mountain slopes where skiers carved elegant turns. The room itself was larger than our entire downstairs at home, with a fireplace, a kitchenette, and a separate bedroom for the girls featuring bunk beds like something from a luxury cabin. "This is the most beautiful place I've ever seen," Emma said, spinning around. I pulled out my phone, took a photo of them exploring, their faces bright with excitement and wonder. Then a picture of the view from our balcony. I posted both to social media, creating magical memories with my amazing family. Sometimes the best adventures are the ones you plan at the last minute. Within an hour, our ski instructor, Jessica, arrived. A cheerful woman in her 20s, she immediately put Emma and Grace at ease. "Have you girls ever been skiing before?" she asked. "Never," Grace admitted. "But Daddy says we're going to learn." "Well, you're going to love it. The mountain conditions are perfect today, and we have the most beautiful beginner slopes you've ever seen." The equipment rental was like nothing I'd ever experienced. Not cramped, chaotic shops, but a high-end boutique. Everything was clean, organized, professional. Emma and Grace looked like little pros in their rented gear. Helmets decorated with colorful designs, matching pink and purple ski outfits. I took photos of them getting fitted, their faces serious. Then, the moment they first stepped onto their skis in the practice area, wobbling slightly but grinning with determination. Posted with the caption, "Watching my daughters discover new adventures. Proud daddy moment." The ski lesson itself was magical. Jessica started them on the bunny hill. I watched as Emma and Grace slowly gained confidence, their initial wobbles giving way to tentative gliding. "Look, Daddy," Emma called out, making her first successful turn. "I'm really skiing." Grace followed, face intense, triumphantly throwing her arms up after her first run. "I actually did it." I photographed every moment, but more importantly, I watched my daughter's self-esteem rebuild before my eyes. After the disappointment of Christmas morning, they were discovering they were capable of amazing things, that they deserved wonderful experiences, and that their parents would move mountains to make sure they felt valued and loved. That evening, we had dinner at the resort's 5-star restaurant. Emma and Grace had never experienced fine dining. They approached it with a mixture of curiosity and excitement. "The menu has words I don't know," Grace whispered. "That's okay," I whispered back. "We'll ask the waiter." Our server, Marcus, was wonderful, patiently explaining each dish, making recommendations, even arranging a special version of pasta for their 8-year-old palates. I photographed our elegant table, the girls in their nice dresses, the beautiful presentation of each course. The food was incredible. But more than that, watching Emma and Grace experience this level of service was priceless. "Daddy," Emma said, finishing dessert, "this is the best dinner I've ever had in my whole life." "Mine too," Grace agreed. "I feel like a princess." I posted a family photo from dinner, teaching my daughters that they deserve the very best life has to offer. Family memories that will last forever. By the second day, Emma and Grace had graduated to intermediate slopes, their confidence growing exponentially. We hired a professional photographer to capture our family skiing together. Stunning action shots, family portraits against snow-covered peaks, candid moments of pure joy. I posted them throughout the day. My daughter's conquering new challenges fills my heart with pride. The response from our extended family was immediate and intense. Aunts and uncles commented, asking where we were and how we could afford such an elaborate vacation. Cousins who hadn't been in touch for months were suddenly liking and sharing. But the comment that mattered most came on day 3. I had posted a family photo from our spa day, where Emma and Grace had gotten their first professional manicures and elegant braids. Sarah and I enjoyed couples massages while the girls were pampered. The photo showed all 4 of us relaxed, glowing and completely content. The caption, "Self-care and family bonding," teaching my girls that they're worth every luxury and every moment of joy we can create together. Tyler commented first. Wow, Uncle Corey, this looks amazing. Where are you guys? Madison's comment appeared an hour later. This looks so fun. Why didn't you invite us? I stared at that comment for several minutes. A rush of satisfaction, followed by a moment of doubt. These were children, after all. But then I thought about Emma's face on Christmas morning. Grace trying to understand why Tyler and Madison deserved ski trips and expensive gifts while she and Emma were excluded. And I typed my response, budget issues. The comment appeared innocuous enough to anyone who didn't understand the context. But I knew that every member of my family would immediately recognize the exact phrase Dad had used to cancel my daughter's Christmas gifts. Within 20 minutes, my phone started buzzing. Extended family members commented, asking what I meant by budget issues when we were clearly on an expensive vacation. Derek's ex-wife, Amanda, even commented, saying she was glad to see someone in the family prioritizing their children's happiness. But the call that came 2 hours later was the one I'd been expecting. Corey Benjamin, Mom's voice was sharp with anger when I answered. How could you say that to Madison? She's just a child. I used the exact words Dad used when he canceled Christmas for Emma and Grace, I said calmly. I thought it was the family's standard explanation for budget-related exclusions from events. That's completely different and you know it. Is it, Mom? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly the same. Children asking why they're being excluded from a family experience. Adults responding with budget issues as an explanation. Your father had legitimate reasons for his Christmas decision. Did he? Because Derek's been posting pictures of his Corvette and his business trips and his expensive dinners for months while claiming to be financially struggling. But somehow Emma and Grace got excluded from Christmas because of budget issues. The silence stretched. Your father wants to talk to you, she said finally. Dad's voice came on the line, controlled anger in his tone. Son, this has gone far enough. Your behavior is dividing this family. My behavior is responding to this family's established priorities. Derek gets luxury treatment for being dramatic and manipulative. Responsible family members get excluded for being stable. I'm just adapting to the system you created. We never intended to hurt Emma and Grace. But you did hurt them, Dad. You sent me a text message canceling their Christmas 3 weeks before the holiday, while Derek's kids were already receiving early gifts worth thousands of dollars. Then you asked me to contribute to Derek's kids' college funds. You want to talk about dividing the family? You divided at the moment you decided that one set of grandchildren was more deserving of love and consideration than the other. Derek's children are going through a difficult divorce situation, and my children are going through the difficult situation of learning that their grandparents consider them less important than their cousins. But apparently, that's not the kind of difficulty that earns family support. I heard heated discussion in the background, Mom and Dad arguing. Your mother and I want to come to Aspen, Dad said finally. We want to see Emma and Grace and discuss this situation in person. I'm sorry, but that won't be possible, I said. Budget issues. The silence was deafening. What do you mean, budget issues? Dad asked. I mean exactly what you meant when you used that phrase to explain to my daughters why their Christmas was canceled. Our vacation budget doesn't accommodate additional guests. Tough choices have to be made, and we've prioritized the family members who have been supportive and loving toward Emma and Grace. Corey, please, let's be adults about this. I am being an adult, Dad. I'm prioritizing my children's emotional well-being over family drama, just like you taught me to do. Derek's kids come first because their situation is complicated, remember? Well, my kids come first now because their situation is also complicated. They're dealing with the difficult realization that their grandparents play favorites. I hung up the phone and turned it back to silent. Then I looked out the window of our luxury suite at the mountain peaks, glowing in the afternoon sunlight. And I realized that for the first time in months, I felt completely at peace with my decisions. Emma and Grace were learning that they deserved wonderful things. Sarah and I were prioritizing our family's well-being. And the rest of the family was learning that their assumptions about us were completely wrong. But the real satisfaction would come when we got home, and they realized that this was just the beginning of how differently we were going to approach family relationships going forward. On our 4th day in Aspen, as we were enjoying breakfast on the resort's outdoor terrace overlooking the pristine mountain slopes, my phone buzzed with the notification I'd been waiting for. Madison had commented on our latest family photo, the one showing Emma and Grace confidently skiing down an intermediate trail with the caption, "My fearless daughters conquering new heights every day." Her comment was innocent and heartbreaking. "Why didn't you invite us? This looks so fun, and I want to learn skiing too." I took a screenshot of the comment before crafting my response. This was the moment I had been building toward. The opportunity to deliver the perfect lesson in consequences. Using the exact language my father had used to devastate my daughters just 1 week earlier, I typed, "Budget issues." The response was simple, elegant, and devastating in its accuracy. Anyone who saw the comment thread would understand immediately that I was using the exact phrase that had been used to exclude my children from Christmas morning with their grandparents. Within minutes, the notifications started rolling in. Extended family members began commenting, asking what I meant. Aunt Patricia wrote, "What budget issues? You're clearly on an expensive vacation." Uncle Robert added, "Wait, didn't Frank say something about budget issues for Christmas too?" But it was Tyler's confused response that really drove the point home. "Uncle Corey, what are budget issues? Dad says we can't come because of budget issues, but I don't understand what that means." I watched the comment thread develop, family members slowly piecing together the connection. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on anyone. The family that had been excluded for supposed budget reasons was now excluding others for the same stated rationale. Derek's ex-wife, Amanda, commented with a laughing emoji. "Interesting how budget issues work differently for different family members." 20 minutes later, my phone started ringing. It was Mom, and I could hear the controlled fury in her voice even before she spoke. "Corey Benjamin, how dare you embarrass this family on social media like that?" "I'm not embarrassing anyone, Mom. I'm simply using the communication style that Dad established as appropriate for explaining family exclusions to children. Madison is crying because she doesn't understand why you won't invite them on your vacation." I felt a momentary pang of guilt, but then I remembered Grace's tears on Christmas morning. Emma's confused questions about why Grandma and Grandpa didn't love them anymore. And the way my daughters had tried to be grateful for their modest gifts while watching their cousins display thousands of dollars worth of luxury presents. "That's unfortunate," I said. "But I'm sure Derek can explain budget issues to his children the same way you and Dad explain them to mine. This is completely different and you know it." "How is it different, Mom?" Madison asked why she wasn't invited to a family experience, and I used the exact same explanation Dad used when Emma and Grace asked why their Christmas was canceled. If it's an acceptable response for 8-year-olds, then it should be acceptable for Tyler and Madison, too. Your father had legitimate financial concerns about Christmas expenses. Did he? Because Derek's social media suggests he's been spending quite freely while claiming financial hardship. Vegas trips, expensive dinners, luxury cars, but somehow my responsible, financially stable family got excluded from Christmas for budget reasons. I could hear Mom conferring with someone in the background. Then Dad's voice came on the line. "Son, this has gone far enough. Your behavior is dividing this family. My behavior is responding to this family's established priorities. Derek gets luxury treatment for being dramatic and manipulative. Responsible family members get excluded for being stable. I'm just adapting to the system you created. We never intended to hurt Emma and Grace, but you did hurt them, Dad. You sent me a text message canceling their Christmas 3 weeks before the holiday, while Derek's kids were already receiving early gifts worth thousands of dollars. Then you asked me to contribute to Derek's kids' college funds. You want to talk about dividing the family? You divided at the moment you decided that one set of grandchildren was more deserving of love and consideration than the other. Derek's children are going through a difficult divorce situation, and my children are going through the difficult situation of learning that their grandparents consider them less important than their cousins. But apparently, that's not the kind of difficulty that earns family support. I could hear a heated discussion in the background, voices overlapping as Mom and Dad argued. "Your mother and I want to come to Aspen," Dad said finally. "We want to see Emma and Grace and discuss the situation in person." "I'm sorry, but that won't be possible," I said. "Budget issues." The silence on the other end was deafening. "What do you mean, budget issues?" Dad asked. "I mean exactly what you meant when you used that phrase to explain to my daughters why their Christmas was canceled. Our vacation budget doesn't accommodate additional guests. Tough choices have to be made, and we've prioritized the family members who have been supportive and loving toward Emma and Grace. Corey, please, let's be adults about this. I am being an adult, Dad. I'm prioritizing my children's emotional well-being over family drama, just like you taught me to do. Derek's kids come first because their situation is complicated, remember? Well, my kids come first now because their situation is also complicated. They're dealing with the difficult realization that their grandparents play favorites. I hung up the phone and turned it back to silent. Then I looked out the window of our luxury suite at the mountain peaks, glowing in the afternoon sunlight. And I realized that for the first time in months, I felt completely at peace with my decisions. Emma and Grace were learning that they deserved wonderful things. Sarah and I were prioritizing our family's well-being. And the rest of the family was learning that their assumptions about us were completely wrong. But the real satisfaction would come when we got home, and they realized that this was just the beginning of how differently we were going to approach family relationships going forward. The next morning, our last day in Aspen, I woke up to a text message that changed everything. It was from Dad. Son, your mother and I have been talking all night. Derek admitted that he hasn't been entirely truthful about his financial situation. We realized we made a terrible mistake with Christmas, and we want to make it right. Can we please talk when you get home? I showed the message to Sarah, who read it with raised eyebrows. What do you think? She asked. I looked out the window at Emma and Grace, building a snowman on the resort's pristine grounds, their laughter carrying on the crisp mountain air. They looked happy, confident, and secure in the knowledge that their parents would always prioritize their well-being. I think, I said, that it's time for some honest family conversations. But they're going to happen on our terms, with our priorities, and with full acknowledgement that Emma and Grace deserve the same love and consideration as any other grandchildren in this family. And if they're not willing to meet those conditions, Sarah asked. I watched my daughters through the window, their faces bright with joy and adventure, completely secure in their parents' love and commitment to their happiness. Then we'll keep creating our own magical family experiences, I said, because Emma and Grace deserve nothing less than the absolute best we can give them. We returned home from Aspen on a Sunday evening, our car loaded with ski equipment, resort souvenirs, and hundreds of photos documenting the most magical week our family had ever experienced. Emma and Grace couldn't stop talking about their skiing adventures, the luxury of room service breakfast in bed, and their plans to practice their new ski techniques on the local bunny hill. But as we pulled into our driveway, I noticed Dad's car parked on the street. Through our living room window, I could see the familiar silhouettes of both my parents sitting on our couch, apparently waiting for our return. Looks like we have company, Sarah said, following my gaze. Emma and Grace spotted their grandparents' car and immediately perked up. Grandpa and Grandma are here, Grace exclaimed. Maybe they want to hear about our skiing. I felt a familiar protective instinct rise in my chest. After a week of watching my daughters rebuild their confidence and joy, I wasn't about to let anyone diminish their happiness or make them feel less than valued. Mark, girls, I said as we unloaded our luggage. Grandpa and Grandma are here to talk with Daddy and Mommy about some grown-up things. Why don't you take your new ski clothes upstairs and organize your souvenirs while we have our conversation? But I want to show them my pictures, Emma protested. You'll have a chance to do that, Sarah assured her. But first, the adults need to talk, okay? As we walked through the front door, Mom immediately stood up, her face a mixture of relief and apprehension. Dad remained seated, his expression more guarded, but clearly uncomfortable. How was your trip? Mom asked, her voice carefully neutral. It was incredible, I said, setting down our luggage. The girls learned to ski. We had amazing family time, and we created memories that will last a lifetime. That's wonderful, she said, though I could hear the underlying tension. Dad cleared his throat. We were hoping we could have a conversation about the situation with Christmas and everything that's happened since then. I'm listening, I said, remaining standing rather than settling in for what might be a long discussion. We owe you an apology, Mom said, her voice starting to crack slightly. Multiple apologies, actually. To you, to Sarah, and especially to Emma and Grace. What specifically are you apologizing for? I asked, wanting to make sure they understood the full scope of what had happened. Dad shifted uncomfortably. We made a serious error in judgment regarding Christmas gifts and family priorities. We allowed Derek to manipulate us with false information about his financial situation, and we made decisions that hurt our relationship with you and the girls. False information? Sarah asked, settling into her favorite chair. Mom nodded, her eyes filling with tears. After you showed me Derek's social media posts, we started asking more direct questions. When we pressed him for documentation of his job loss, he finally admitted that he quit voluntarily to start his consulting business. And when we asked about the Corvette he claimed to have sold, Dad continued, we discovered it's been parked behind his friend's house to keep us from seeing it when we visited his apartment. I felt a surge of vindication, but kept my expression neutral. What else? The expensive restaurants, the Vegas trips, the luxury purchases he's been posting about, Mom said, wiping her eyes. All of it funded by money he borrowed from us under false pretenses, plus credit cards he's been hiding from us. He convinced us that his children needed extra support because of the divorce trauma, while he was actually using the situation to fund a lifestyle he couldn't afford on his own, Dad added. Meanwhile, I said, Emma and Grace got their Christmas canceled because responsible parents supposedly don't need family support or consideration. We were wrong, Mom said firmly. Completely, inexcusably wrong. We let Derek play victim while punishing you for being stable and successful. We took your family for granted because you don't create drama or ask for help. I looked toward the staircase, where I could hear Emma and Grace moving around in their room. The girls were devastated, I said quietly. Christmas morning was heartbreaking. They kept asking why they weren't good enough for their grandparents to come see them. Mom started crying in earnest. I can't believe we did that to them. They must think we don't love them. They did think that, Sarah said. They spent Christmas morning trying to understand why Tyler and Madison deserve thousands of dollars in gifts and a ski trip, while they got excluded from the family celebration entirely. Dad ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I remembered from my childhood when he was stressed. Derek's manipulation was sophisticated, son. He played on our sympathy for the divorce situation, made us feel like responsible grandparents needed to step in and provide stability for his children, while making you feel like our children didn't need that same love and attention because their parents were capable of providing for them. I finished. Exactly. And it was wrong on every level. I walked to the window and looked out at our quiet neighborhood, thinking about Aspen. The joy on my daughters' faces, the way their confidence had rebuilt, the family bonding that had emerged. What's changed? I asked, turning back. What's different now that makes you think you can fix this? We've established new boundaries with Derek, Dad said. He's no longer living with us, and we've made it clear that any future financial support will require complete transparency and documentation of legitimate need. He's also agreed to enter counseling, Mom added, both for his manipulative behavior and for the impact his choices have had on Tyler and Madison's understanding of family relationships. That's a start, I said. But what about Emma and Grace? How do you plan to rebuild their trust and repair the damage that's been done? Mom and Dad exchanged glances. We want to reimburse you for the Christmas expenses you had to cover when we canceled their gifts, Dad said. We also want to pay for your Aspen vacation, since that became necessary because of our poor judgment. And we want to establish new family traditions that ensure all grandchildren are treated equally. No more favoritism, Mom added. No more assumptions about which families need support versus which families can handle things on their own. I considered their offers. The financial reimbursement would certainly help with the credit card debt from the vacation. But the money wasn't the point anymore. I appreciate the financial offer, I said. But what matters more is whether Emma and Grace feel valued and prioritized going forward. They've learned this week that they're capable of amazing things and that they deserve wonderful experiences. I won't let anyone make them feel second class again. We understand, Dad said, and we want to be part of creating those wonderful experiences, not obstacles to them. Sarah leaned forward. What about Derek's children? Tyler and Madison didn't choose their father's manipulation, and they don't deserve to be punished for his behavior. We've had conversations with Derek about that, too, Mom said. The children will still receive love and support, but it will be proportionate and honest. No more luxury, gifts funded by deception. No more special treatment that comes at the expense of other family members. I heard footsteps on the stairs, and Emma appeared in the living room doorway, holding a photo from our ski lesson. "Daddy, can I show Grandma and Grandpa my skiing picture?" I looked at my parents, seeing the hope and guilt warring in their expressions. "Come here, sweetheart." Emma approached cautiously, clearly sensing the tension, but eager to share her accomplishments. "Grandma and Grandpa have something they want to say to you first," I said gently. Mom knelt down to Emma's eye level, her voice thick with emotion. "Sweetheart, Grandma and Grandpa made some very bad decisions about Christmas, and we hurt your feelings and Grace's feelings. We're so sorry, and we want you to know that it had nothing to do with how much we love you." Emma studied her grandmother's face seriously. "Tyler said you couldn't afford presents for everybody, so you had to choose." The innocent honesty of her statement hit the room like a physical blow. "That's not what happened, honey," Grandpa said, his voice carefully controlled. "Tyler was wrong about that. We made poor choices about how to handle Christmas, and we hurt people we love very much. We're going to do better going forward." Grace appeared in the doorway, drawn by the serious conversation. "Are you sad, Grandma?" she asked, noticing Mom's tears. "I'm sad that I made you and Emma sad," Mom admitted. "But I'm happy that you had such a wonderful vacation and that you learned to ski." For the next hour, Emma and Grace shared their Aspen photos and stories with their grandparents. I watched Mom and Dad's faces as they saw the evidence of the magical week we had created for our daughters. The professional ski photos, the elegant restaurant dinners, the luxury experiences that had rebuilt my girls' confidence and joy. "They look so happy," Mom whispered to me as Emma demonstrated her skiing stance in our living room. "They are happy," I said. "They learned that they're worth fighting for, that they deserve amazing experiences, and that their parents will always prioritize their well-being above family politics." After my parents left that evening, promising to start planning special one-on-one time with Emma and Grace to begin rebuilding their relationships, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened over the past month. Derek's manipulation had temporarily divided our family, but in doing so, it had forced all of us to examine our values and priorities. Mom and Dad had been confronted with the consequences of their favoritism and had chosen to make meaningful changes. Derek had been forced to acknowledge his deceptive behavior and commit to therapy. Most importantly, Emma and Grace had learned that they had value, that they deserved equal treatment, and that their parents would move mountains to ensure their happiness and well-being. The Aspen vacation had cost us financially, but it had been worth every penny for the confidence it had restored in my daughters and the boundaries it had established with my extended family. 6 months later, our family relationships had been rebuilt on a healthier foundation. Mom and Dad kept their promise about equal treatment, establishing traditions that included all grandchildren fairly. Derek completed his counseling program and began making genuine efforts to be honest about his finances and transparent about his needs. Tyler and Madison adjusted to receiving age-appropriate gifts and experiences rather than luxury items funded by manipulation. They seemed happier with the more stable, honest family dynamic. Emma and Grace thrived with their restored relationships with their grandparents, but they also carried forward the confidence and self-worth they had gained from our Aspen adventure. They knew they were valued, loved, and worth fighting for. And Sarah and I learned that sometimes protecting your family means being willing to make uncomfortable choices, even when those choices disrupt established family dynamics. The lesson I carried forward was simple but profound. Responsible, successful people deserve just as much love, consideration, and support as anyone else in the family. Being stable doesn't mean you should be taken for granted. And being capable doesn't mean you don't need or deserve special treatment sometimes. Most importantly, children deserve equal love and consideration, regardless of their parents' circumstances or the drama level of their family situation. Standing up for those principles had temporarily created conflict, but it had ultimately created a much stronger, healthier family dynamic based on honesty, fairness, and genuine love, rather than manipulation and favoritism. As we planned our return trip to Aspen the following Christmas, this time as a multi-generational family vacation with grandparents who had learned to value all their grandchildren equally, I realized that sometimes the best gift you can give your children is teaching them that they're worth fighting for. And sometimes the best gift you can give your family is showing them what real love and commitment looks like, even when it means making difficult choices and standing firm on important principles. So, tell me, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to choose between keeping peace and standing up for what's right for your own family? What would you have done in my place? I really want to know.